Hello, my delicious co-creators. Lilou here. I'm in Korea. Just came back from Japan. I'm here in the main city of Korea, actually Seoul, in South Korea, of course, with you, Ron. I'm excited that we were introduced and to meet you because you are very well known here and you've put a lot of things in place around yoga. You're this yoga master. You have, and you can check his background, and there's many titles, if we can say, and you're very much recognized here, and it's just a delicious pleasure to speak about really this consciousness, about esotericism, even about what this world is about. Like, to me, this is really juicy conversation, and I love meeting people like you because you had to overcome many things, and this is not an easy path. Like and this is your one example and there's many of us around the world that are transforming our lives. So to me, this is inspiring. And I know that you're originally Dutch and you've been here for many years now in Korea, nearly 20 years, and you've been practicing yoga for more than 40 years. You knew this from a very young age. But like, before we get into the story and what you had to overcome and the lessons, like, how would you summarize, or how can we, is there a core message in all that, or what is really the foundation for doing what you're doing? Because you're truly dedicated. This is your life. Yoga is your life.
Yes, yoga is my life. My life is yoga.
You became yoga.
Yes, the total fusion as yoga is promising. Yoga is, many people say yoga is 5,000 years old, but Korean culture is also 5,000 years old. 5,000 years is because written history doesn't go back further than that. In my opinion, yoga is as old as mankind becoming conscious, and it is the science of life. And that is how I present it. And why I'm so passionate about it is because it has helped me to live my life, to make my life better, to save me, in fact, to become reborn, in fact. And I want to present that to other people. I want other people to go through the same process as I had the fortune to do myself.
How would you describe yourself, like the before Ron? How would you describe it in few words, if you could?
Well, as a teenager, I was lost. I was in a dark hole. And I found yoga, and yoga just totally changed my life.
Oh, that earlier on. How old were you?
20.
And you just, I mean, I guess now you see it as a synchronicity, but back then you stumbled upon it?
I found a book in the library, and it just came at the right time. I found a book about yoga 4 years before that in an old chest from an uncle, but I was still too young, too chaotic, too distracted. 4 years later, when I was 20, I found a book, and it was very simply called Teach Yourself Yoga, and that immediately appealed to me. So I started to teach myself yoga from that book, and I practiced every evening. And it felt so good, it felt so great, and it really totally transformed my life.
There's many type of teaching within yoga, so which route did you take? Because there's many types.
When I started practicing yoga, yoga was not popular yet at all. It was kind of an obscure practice, and that is how I started, and that is how I continued. These days there are a lot of popular yogas which have actually been invented in the past 20 years. But my approach is really the traditional style. The modern approach is really physical, athletic, gymnastic. While the ancient approach of yoga is, of course, there is a physical aspect to it, but it is really all about energy and finding harmony in that energy.
Tell us more about that energy.
Well, you know, the reason why people are unstable, the reason why people are having internal and external conflicts is because there is always a fluctuation between what in China is called the yin and yang energies. In India, you have the same concept. In Sanskrit, it's called Shiva and Shakti energies. When a human being is in the middle, in the harmony spectrum,
like in balance and harmony.
Right. You experience a sense of well-being. The mind becomes much calmer as a result of that condition. And as a result, you start getting deep insights, starting with the self, and then later about the world at large. And That is basically the opening up of the human being, of the consciousness that occurs if yoga is practiced correctly. Because that is the whole point. If yoga is practiced in a traditional way, every aspect of yoga is leading to this harmony, which is called sattva in Sanskrit language. Well, what you see with the modern yogas is, because it's purely physical, it doesn't lead to harmony, so it's missing that transformational aspect.
So you're saying ideally every yoga instructor could have the physical part, but also the teaching around it, before the class, after?
I think the teaching forms the foundation, and if you understand that, then your practice will change, because you will always be looking for the harmony aspect. While what you see these days, it's really the perfection in the poses, and it's not so much different from an aerobic class. It's just it's surrounded with new age music and some mystical mysteriousness, but for the rest it's purely physical in most places.
I guess quite naturally, when you're in some poses, you have to overcome the difficulty, go beyond it. So there is a natural teaching there that occurs. So do we really need to study outside of it? Or, I mean, I guess it's a natural process for most people. But do you know what I mean? Like, there is this natural lesson that arises the same way that when we go to Buddhist temple here, and I just came back from Japan, they have you wash and be part of the temple and do all these things, and they don't teach much, but in the end you receive the lessons.
Right. Well, you're very correct when you say while you're in the poses that you are being confronted with certain aspects of yourself that you otherwise are not conscious of. And that is the interesting part of yoga, because yoga is truly the science of life. Because what you learn in your practice will automatically integrate into how you deal with issues in your daily life. So the obstacles that you come across, which are not only physical, actually, there are a lot of mental obstacles that you come across, which are generally subconscious but become more and more conscious as a result of you standing still and becoming introspective. The obstacles that you solve in your practice, in your exercises, they change your character. They change how you deal, not just in a superficial way in your exercise, but you will integrate it in the way you go about your relationships. You integrate it in the way you go about your work. It integrates in daily life, truly.
Yeah, the same way so when a conflict arises, the same way that when we meditate, we will be more of an observer of that situation. How do you see it? Like, really, how does it transmute? How does it apply all this in the practical life? Maybe some lessons that you've learned from it.
Well, for that I think I refer to the Bhagavad Gita, which is is an epic book, very famous also. And many people do not understand what the book really is about, but practically it's about the battle between the head and the heart. This is a struggle that we always have. The head representing your mental capacity, the heart representing intuition, which is very subtle and refined. So in the Bhagavad Gita, there is the warrior Arjuna, who is fighting his battles in a physical battlefield. That is what the book seems to be. It's a battlefield with chariots and people killing each other. And whenever he ends up in trouble, he then visits his mentor, Krishna, Lord Krishna, who then gives him valuable advice, gives him insight. But although on the surface it looks like a real battlefield, it is really the internal battlefield that many people are struggling with. It's just it's written in a symbolical way, like all ancient books were written in a symbolical way. And when you grasp that, it is such a valuable book. It's not just a fairy tale or a story, but it carries a lot of practical insight in your own functioning in daily life.
And this is part of the paradigm shift, or this is how I see it. Like, before we were trying to get validation or find solution outside of us, and now it's about what really is going on inside and going deeper within, which I guess yoga is really bringing us to this place. How do you if you're a visual person, but how do you see what's going on really inside of us? Like you're describing these battles between the mind and the heart. How does this feel when it becomes harmonious, or how do you see this this integration of all this inside? If we can really look with a microscope or with a camera inside of us, how do you see it?
You know, people talk a lot about disconnect. Connect, disconnect. Most people in society are disconnected. But what does that really mean? Yoga goes out from the point of view that you exist out of three bodies: the physical, the mental, and the causal body. The physical body, that is your lower functioning, where your instincts, your emotions, and your lower desires are.
Sex?
Yeah, too. Sex too, of course. It's survival. Yeah. Yes, sex too, very much, of course. It's one of the strongest powers moving people, motivating people, and fear in combination. Then you have the mental body, which is the head and around the head. And the causal body, that is what is above the head. So those three bodies, if there is a disconnect, what people talk about with disconnect actually means there is no soul consciousness, there's no connection, there is no intuition. And this is really practically yoga leads to harmony occurring between physical body and the mental body. And as a result of that, you open up, consciousness opens up, you develop insight in yourself. That is where your quest for information starts, always with the self. And the connection, what really is connection, that is what we call soul consciousness. The reason why society is lacking this connection is because the physical body is gross. Your emotions, your desires are very clear. It's not subtle at all, and it is dominating people's lives. It's dominating how we go about our daily things, our relationships and everything. And it is leading always to conflicts, suffering, doubt, fear. When you open up the causal body, the consciousness, intuition opens up, you kind of rise above all those emotions and desires and you start observing them, which then gives you the power to actually intercept what is going on before it actually causes misery.
Suffering.
Yes, suffering, conflicts. Yeah. So you see it already coming before it has happened, and that gives you the power to interfere and not let it happen.
Yes. And how is that, being the observer, related to the wisdom that we have within? Or are we only talking of the wisdom that is all around us?
You know,
How do we go within?
There are two kinds of knowledge, roughly. One knowledge is that you get from books, from school, from your teachers, from your parents, from the internet, from books, internet, newspaper, etc. The media and education. That knowledge is limited because it is, first of all, not your own experience that gave you that knowledge, so it's rather superficial. But now you develop the ability to contemplate because you become harmonious, you develop an insight. And that is where you start putting the pieces of the puzzle together, and the theoretical knowledge that you had before actually becomes your own real knowledge and insight. And another very interesting aspect that occurs when you practice yoga regularly and your intuition becomes more and more dominant is you can receive information, insights from what I like to call higher sources, universal insight, universal knowledge. And that is not limited by what you have learned from books and teachers and so on. So that enormously widens the field that you can receive insight in.
It feels like, to me, like the insight is how we're our cells are infused with all of this, and we're infused with gratitude, and our heart is open, and like there's this light that emanates within and that connects to higher consciousness, and then it's this integration and this feeling of oneness.
It's so wonderful how you say that. It gives me goosebumps. Yes, absolutely. You're talking about the heart, this oneness. That is really, there are so many wonderful people in this world. So many. Most people, in fact, are really wonderful people. And it is especially when that integration occurs, when their heart opens up, that wonderful aspect of those people comes out. As long as people are disturbed, although they have this wonderful aspect hidden within, they do not manifest like that. And that is the wonderful thing that I see happening more and more around me. That is, people more and more manifest their heart rather than just being based on their lower emotions and desires and
just material needs.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Is it part of yoga to go beyond, or yoga philosophy to go beyond the material world? I mean, how do you see this balance between this material world, the spiritual world? I know it's a big one, but it's an important one these days.
It's very interesting question. Because there are spiritual movements in the world that say you must renounce all materialism and then you will go to heaven. The Buddha has said, and the yoga books also say, if you want to pursue spiritual growth, if you want to pursue spiritual endeavor in the first place, all your material needs must be met first. That is the foundation based upon which you will then spiritually develop. In a practical way, you see this happening. If you look at Europe, before and during the world wars, there was turmoil and people were thrown back on their survival instincts. There is no room for spiritual development. But then they made pact with each other. All the countries came together and said, we will never have war anymore. And they did, a huge area. So peace occurs, which is harmony, like the sattva in yoga. Peace occurs, people build their material world around them, their basic needs are met, and then what happens? Everybody slowly but certainly becomes spiritual in a natural way. And so people start looking more and more for Buddhism, for yoga. Also in Christianity, people have a tendency to go beyond the dogma and look what it's really about, rather than the limit of how it has been presented for years to control people, to indoctrinate people. So people become more and more connected, leading to more and more unity also. All the religions and spiritual practices in the end will fuse and come together, and there is no distinction anymore.
It seems to me like it's a huge paradigm shift when we start to see abundance, or reframe it as abundance rather than just the money in itself, because this universe is abundant.
Right. But the thing is also, money is not ugly or so, which is an idea that many spiritual people want to present. It's just the way. The difference is, do you use it wisely?
Do you let it flow like energy or not?
Or do you become a slave of it? Yeah. But that's the same with wine. If you drink one glass of wine, it's really good for your health. If you drink the whole bottle, you become a slave of it and it destroys you. Yeah. The internet, that opens the world for you. You have the whole world libraries at your fingertips. You can become addicted to the computer, to porn, to games, to whatever. So it's just the way that you use it.
This is very much the harmony you're talking about, finding this harmony in between everything. It's not like one thing is bad, but it's finding the right balance in all this.
Exactly. And for the yoga practitioner, if you are confronted with a situation where you need to struggle for your survival, you don't even know whether you're going to have food on the table tomorrow, you just have no room for spiritual practice. It is the foundation that needs to be laid based on material stability that then provides the springboard for your spiritual practice and development.
Then what would you recommend a person that is struggling on that aspect, even maybe as a yoga practitioner would like to teach it? You would say better not to teach it unless you have this stability. Is that what you're saying? Like you better stop, and or what do you mean exactly? I just want to make sure we don't misinterpret.
I know if you're a beginning yoga teacher, you just have to put yourself out there. Also, if you're not so stable, because it is especially when you start teaching that you start to grow and develop. It is like, you know, in corporate life, people come from the university, they have a degree and they're arrogant, they're cocky, and they think I deserve a big salary. The people and the managers in the company, they're laughing at that because they know you're just a beginner. It's the same with yoga. You do your training, you do your education, you teach a training course.
Which you do here, by the way, if you want to learn with Ron, he teaches here in Korea, yes.
Yes, thank you. But the real work starts when you're done, and then you go out there and you do your thing, and the stability will come along the way. You put it into practice, you try to present it to people also, and it's a trial and error process, and you grow and you develop enormously.
You had to close your yoga studio here in Korea. You went through hard times. You had to make choices. Tell us about that so that we can learn from it. Because I think sometimes when people see you, you know, they might see just the success and what you have now and what you've been able to put in place. But this journey ain't just, it wasn't that easy. And it seems from the outside, but then you had to go through your trial and errors.
Sure. You are so right when you say what you see sitting here now. That is, you know, that is not what I was looking like 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 15 years ago. As a yoga practitioner or a sentient human being, you are constantly on the move, very dynamic. Although you're internally peaceful and focused, that makes the foundation for constant change and growth. I had to close my school. You know, I always say there is this famous poem is called The Road Not Taken. It is about coming in life at a fork in the road where you have to choose. Am I going to choose the easy path, the path of comfort and stability, or am I going to follow the path of challenges and obstacles, etc.? The majority of the people choose the easy path. So they get stuck in a way, which, because maybe their consciousness is not so open yet, they are perfectly comfortable with. When you start becoming conscious, you have more and more a tendency to choose that road not taken. But that means indeed, and this is the reason why people don't dare to take it, you will come across huge challenges and huge obstacles which you have to overcome. And one of the biggest obstacles you will come across is really internal. The way you function, the way you make mistakes by making the wrong choices based on the wrong motive or so. And that is really what yoga is all about also.
You did a burnout, clearly. We can say that. You burned yourself out. You were working too hard and not finding any more the balance that you were teaching, huh? In the classes.
Yes, I was so passionate about yoga that I sacrificed my yoga school for that, basically.
And we can do that with our passion. I see myself with all these trips and all the interviews and how we're passionate about it and how we forget ourselves. Like it's such a beautiful mission and vision that we forget to take care of this temple.
Yes, exactly. And so while I was teaching my students about well-being and peace of mind, I was working 7 days a week on the computer, in the yoga class. And the word you used is very correct, burnt out, and that was the tragedy of having to close the yoga school. But higher powers provide.
Yeah.
The process of closing the yoga school was really a tragedy. I felt like dying inside, and I really didn't know what to do next in life. I even felt I had spent my most productive years in life chasing a dream, a ghost. At the age of 33, I closed the yoga school. But you know what? 3 weeks after I closed the yoga school, the phone rang. And there was this guy on the phone, a smooth business guy. And he said, "Hey, Ron, this is Ray. I want to meet you." So, what is this all about? I was still a little bit dark and depressed, you know. What is this all about? He said...
You were intrigued, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. You know, that is why the phone rings. There is no coincidence in life. So he said, "Well, I'm the manager of one of the most successful fitness centers in Korea, and we're going to open a new center. And I want you to run our yoga department.
That's World Gym, right?
That's World Gym, yes, in Yeouido. And so, you know, for me, higher powers provide. Yeah. The sacrifice I made with the school has led to, if I had still had my yoga school, if I had not closed it, I would have denied him. I would have told him, well, sorry, I'm busy, I can't accept your offer. And it led to an incredible synergy, really.
And what could be criticized by others, meaning you went for this big like commercial gym to teach a traditional yoga. For you, this was exactly like it resonated with you and you knew that this was the next step, which didn't make sense maybe to the logic. And this is where the dilemma is between the head and the heart. But you just knew this is it and this is where it's going to happen. It felt good.
Yes, you know, life is a paradox. Yoga is a paradox. It's dealing with the opposing forces, yin and yang, or Shiva and Shakti. Life is a paradox. And I'm a paradox, a living yogi. So I'm not radical, I'm not fanatic. I just go with the flow of life. The opportunity came, and we're talking about stability, we're talking about harmony. The gym provided me the stability for me to grow like never before. And that is the opportunity that I use. So I'm the most traditional yoga teacher in Korea, working in the most commercial gym in Korea. And that is just a wonderful marriage.
Yes, and you love teaching now to, and you're passionate about that, like teaching people on becoming themselves instructors.
Yes, no, I do not want them necessarily to become instructors. The first thing is they have to transform. And you know, our basic course is just a 5-month course, and it is just amazing to see how when people register for the course, they have no idea. They just expect it to be like any other teacher training course with lots of physical anatomy and a lot of theory. Our course is really very practically based on the old scriptures, but based on my experiences in life, based on my miseries, how I solved them, based on my insight. And I see them change in just 5 months' time. I see people transform, opening up, and even coming to the point that they discover their passion in life, which is one big part of my teachings, is if you want to become happy, you also sometime you will have to choose the road not taken. That will give you a lot of obstacles, but it will lead you to finding your real heart's content. Rather than just doing what society dictated you to do, what your parents dictated you to do. Because that is not the real you. The real you is hidden inside, and you discover that by starting to follow your heart. And it's just amazing. And I always give them the extra message, because I'm responsible for their misery that follows next. I always give them the message, you know, this is just a 5-month course, but we will be family forever. So do not think when this is finished and you go on your way and you end up in trouble, do not think it is finished. You contact me, send me an email. I will try to give you some insight. I will give you a cyber kick in the butt to help you a little bit on your way. And with that, I will always be there to help you, to provide you with insight. So do not be scared. Yes. I'll be.
And some people will choose the path to become instructor.
Yes.
That's their hard calling.
Exactly. That is how I started to teach also. If you are confronted with the wonderful benefits of yoga, how that changes you and how that makes you happier, you automatically want to share it with other people. You start with your mom. You tell your, hey, mom, this is so wonderful. You should try. Of course, your mom says, well, I'm not interested. That's what my mom did. People are not interested until they come to you. So that is one thing you have to learn. But absolutely, you want to share something so wonderful you can't keep to yourself.
Yeah, beautiful. And why did you call it Magic Pond Yoga?
Because yoga is magic. Yeah. And a pond, you know, if you throw a stone in the water, it makes ripples and it spreads out all over the pond. And when you do something bad, that affects everybody around you. But more importantly, when you do something good, that affects everybody around you. And that is the purpose of teaching yoga. It may be a small drop in the ocean, but it is a drop. And it makes many more drops with all the people that I teach. So spreading good, positive energy, good deeds, helping the world become a little bit a better place in a small way. But anyway, Magic Pond.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Ron, for this delicious interview, for taking the time, and I'm loving this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm very honored to be here. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you to you, Juicy co-creators. Sending you much love and beautiful light from delicious Korea. South Korea is definitely, it's happening here. South Korea is transforming, and it's beautiful to witness. Big time.
Big time. South Korea, in the 18 years that I'm here, I've seen it change totally. It's so dynamic. It's so full of energy. It's just wonderful, marvelous.
And this is happening also in your country. This is happening all around the world. I'm clear with all these travels that there's a shift happening. And we send you so much love and beauty. Big kiss. Bye. You rock.